Hi, and thank you for visiting my channel. For more information, kindly subscribe and follow. Now let's get started. Solo Sikoa and his bloodline suffered a loss at the WWE Survivor Series during the War Games match. The upcoming episode of SmackDown will showcase the aftermath of this defeat and what lies ahead for the new bloodline after failing to overcome the OG bloodline. One surprising twist could involve the self-proclaimed tribal chief removing Jacob Fatu from the faction and replacing him with the 6'8" monster, Hikuleo. Fatu was assigned the role of enforcer in the new bloodline, tasked with protecting Solo Sikoa. However, he failed to fulfill this duty during the War Games match. In the match's climax, Jimmy Uso sent the Samoan werewolf crashing through a table, while Solo was attacked by all the OG bloodline members and CM Punk. Due to his inability to shield Sikoa from annihilation, the self-proclaimed tribal chief might decide to remove Jacob Fatu and bring in Hikuleo as his replacement. Currently, Hikuleo has reportedly signed with the Stamford-based promotion, though no timeline for his debut has been disclosed. Earlier reports suggested Hikuleo might debut in NXT first. However, with no developments so far, plans could change, and WWE might opt to introduce the 33-year-old star directly into the Bloodline saga. Removing Jacob Fatu from the new bloodline would undoubtedly be a bold move, injecting a significant twist into the ongoing family drama storyline. It remains to be seen how the fallout of the Bloodline Civil War will unfold in the upcoming episode of SmackDown. What if Solo Sikoa kicks out Jacob Fatu from Bloodline on WWE SmackDown? Though the scenario is highly speculative and unlikely to happen anytime soon, if Solo Sikoa were to kick Jacob Fatu out of the Bloodline, it could lead to the Samoan werewolf's babyface turn. Typically, when heel stars are ousted from their faction, they transition into a heroic character. This pattern has been seen with stars like Roman Reigns and Damian Priest, who turned babyface after being removed from their respective factions. If Jacob Fatu is removed from the new bloodline on WWE SmackDown, WWE could follow a similar approach. They might write him off television for a few weeks to reintroduce him as a babyface star. Furthermore, the Samoan werewolf could align himself with Roman Reigns and the OG bloodline to seek revenge against the self-proclaimed tribal chief. The Bloodline saga still offers many directions to explore. One day, Jacob Fatu will likely embark on a single run in WWE, distancing himself from Solo's bloodline, but it remains to be seen when that will happen. The bloodline had always been a force to be reckoned with in WWE. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, had built an empire around his family, with Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso serving as his right and left hands. But there was one man who stood apart, Solo Sikoa, the enforcer. A warrior by blood, he embodied the ruthless strength of the Anoa'i family. But what if Solo, the man who had kept the bloodline together through sheer power, decided it was time to take matters into his own hands? It all began one fateful night on SmackDown. The bloodline was at the height of its power. Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, stood tall as the face of WWE, surrounded by his loyal brethren. Yet, there were cracks. The unity that had once been their greatest strength was now their greatest weakness. Jey Uso was questioning his loyalty, and Jimmy, always the wild card, had recently been distracted by personal issues. But the tension wasn't just between the Usos, it was between Solo Sikoa and the newest member of the group, Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu, the nephew of Roman Reigns, had been brought in to bolster the bloodline's ranks. With his impressive size and strength, Fatu seemed like a perfect fit. However, Solo Sikoa never quite saw eye to eye with him. The younger Fatu had come in with the intention of proving himself as the future of the family. But to Solo, this was a challenge he was not willing to accept. He didn't need a successor, he was the enforcer. Solo had been a part of the bloodline longer than Jacob Fatu, and he wasn't about to let anyone usurp his position. Solo's discontent began to fester in private conversations with Roman. It was clear to him that Jacob was gunning for the enforcer role, trying to make a name for himself by being more aggressive in the ring, more ruthless in backstage dealings. The constant friction between the two men reached a boiling point during a tag team match on SmackDown. Roman Reigns had called for a united front, and Solo, alongside Jacob, was tasked with taking on some up-and-coming challengers. The match started with the usual display of dominance. The bloodline was relentless, but Solo noticed Jacob trying to outshine him, taking the lead and attempting to steal the spotlight with power moves that Solo felt belonged to him. The turning point came when Jacob, in an attempt to show his strength, miscalculated a dive outside the ring, crashing into the barricade. The distraction left Solo vulnerable to a cheap shot from the opponents, and though he quickly regained control, the damage had been done. The tension between Solo and Jacob was palpable. Roman was watching from the back, his eyes narrowing with every misstep from the young Fatu. It was time for change. The following week, the bloodline gathered backstage, Roman Reigns in the center, his aura as intimidating as ever. Solo Sikoa stood near him, his presence felt but his gaze locked on the floor. Jacob Fatu, always eager to prove himself, stood at attention. Roman spoke first. The bloodline has stood strong because of our unity. We are a family, but we all know that some have more to prove than others. Fatu, Roman said, his voice calm yet powerful, you've got potential, but not everyone is cut out for this life. The room went silent. Jacob's confidence faltered. He'd come into the group with the intention of cementing his legacy, but now the truth was becoming clear, he wasn't the future he thought he was. Solo stepped forward, his voice cold. You're too focused on yourself, Fatu. You're not cut from the same cloth as the rest of us. This is about respect, respect for Roman, respect for the family. You don't have that yet. Jacob Fatu's eyes narrowed. I earned my place here. You don't have the authority to tell me. Before Jacob could finish, Solo's eyes hardened. He grabbed Jacob by the throat, lifting him off his feet and slamming him against the wall. I'm the enforcer here, Solo growled. You're just another wannabe. Roman looked on him passively, nodding slightly. He had been waiting for this moment. It wasn't just about Jacob's attitude, it was about the family dynamic that had shifted ever since Solo had joined the group. Solo had always been the unsung hero, the silent force, and now he would claim the leadership he deserved. Jacob, Roman said softly, you're out of the bloodline. You've got heart, but you're not ready. You're too selfish, too driven by your own ego. You've got to prove yourself somewhere else. Maybe one day, we'll see you again. But not as part of my family. Jacob's eyes burned with rage as he was thrown out of the group. The betrayal stung, and he stormed off, determined to make the world pay for what had just happened. But that wasn't the end of it. Solo Sikoa wasn't finished yet. As soon as Jacob was out of the picture, he turned to Roman with a bold request. I've got someone else in mind. Someone who will take the bloodline to the next level, Solo said, his eyes gleaming with a plan in mind. Someone who's stronger, more ruthless. A 6-foot monster who will make Fatu look like a child. Roman raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Who are you talking about? Solo grinned, a hint of excitement in his voice. A beast who's been waiting in the wings. A man who will enforce the bloodline's dominance, make it unstoppable. Suddenly, the arena lights dimmed, and the Tron lit up with a graphic of a hulking silhouette. The crowd buzzed in anticipation, unsure of what to expect. Then, the lights flickered back on, and standing in the middle of the ring was none other than Hikaleo, the massive 6'8" powerhouse from NJPW, a man who had previously been seen in passing at WWE events but had never made a true appearance. Hikaleo's size was staggering, dwarfing even Solo Sikoa. His presence was overwhelming, and as he glared down at the ring, it became clear that this was no ordinary debut. This was the beginning of something much larger than anyone could imagine. Hikaleo was the future of the bloodline, Solo's enforcer, the true monster who would instill fear in anyone who dared challenge Roman Reigns and his family. Roman Reigns stepped forward, a satisfied smirk on his face. Welcome to the bloodline, he said. The crowd erupted as Solo Sikoa stood beside Hikaleo, now united in their vision to make the bloodline even more powerful than ever before. They had eliminated the weak link, and with Hikaleo by their side, nothing could stand in their way. Solo had made his move, solidifying his place as the leader of the bloodline, while Hikaleo's debut marked the arrival of a new era, one where the bloodline would reign supreme with an enforcer like no other. The wrestling world would never be the same again.